Hey there guys, it's Andrew with Tech Engineered, and today we're going to be doing a review of a Sony Action Cam. It'll be pretty interesting, so stay tuned. So I was given an action cam to review, and I took it on a trip to Cozumel, where I took it scuba diving and everything, because that's really the only action sport that I do. But anyway, yeah, took it down there, so we're going to be reviewing some footage, and also doing a good, bad, and ugly on this camera. So first, let's talk about some specs on this camera. This camera is 1080p max. It can shoot like 4K pictures, but 1080p max on video, which is mainly what you're going to be using it for. And it does shoot up to 60 frames per second, or it can go down to 30 frames per second, and you can also take it down to like 720p 30 frames or 60 frames, depending on if you want to save some space on the SD card or not. And it does take a micro SD card. It has a black and white screen on the side to navigate the menus, but that is the only screen that you have on it. It does come with a wristwatch that allows you to actually see what the camera's seeing, and that connects via Bluetooth. And that also allows you to record and change settings on the camera from your wrist. However, we're not covering it in this review because it is not waterproof enough to take scuba diving, therefore I was not able to fully test it, and I didn't even take it on my trip. So now, let's go ahead and show you guys some side-by-side footage. First, I'm going to show you just like raw footage that I took out of the water, just like street footage and stuff. And then I'm going to show you some underwater footage, uncolor graded. And then I'm going to show you some footage that I took underwater and then I color graded it later. This camera does have an underwater filter option. It's a digital filter. It's not an actual red filter that comes with the camera, but it does have one that you can turn on in the settings. I did not do that. I'm just going to color grade it in post and not mess with that automatic setting, because most cameras, that automatic setting is awful, and I actually kind of tested it out and it doesn't work too terribly well. And if you're going to be using it underwater, you might want to consider getting a red filter for it to introduce the red color spectrum back, because the water does filter out red color spectrum the deeper you go. So generally for underwater photography and stuff, you put a red filter on your camera. So that's something that you might want to think about, so that you don't have to color grade it in post, which won't turn out as well as if you just use a physical red filter to introduce that red spectrum back. So yeah, here is the test footage. So let's start off by talking about the good points of the camera, the things that I liked. The first thing that I liked was that it was 60 frames per second. I didn't actually shoot in 60 frames per second, I shot in 30, just for memory reasons, but having 60 frames per second on an action cam is very nice, because action cams generally take videos of action, and action's generally fast, so 60 allows you to remove some motion blur from fast things moving fast. So 60 frames per second is a great feature to have on the camera. It also has a wide-angle lens, which is actually pretty necessary on the camera, because the camera doesn't have a screen for you to view and like frame up a shot. So it really needs to be point and shoot, literally point and shoot. Like, you can't see what you're pointing it at really on a screen or anything. So the wide-angle lens definitely helps with that, and wide-angle lenses just kind of give a cool look to action cam footage, I think. So that's another good feature there. Another cool feature is that it comes with the waterproof case for it, and the waterproof case is actually very easy to use, easy to take on and off. I would suggest putting some silicone on the seal though. I didn't for this first trip, but I probably will from now on. just because that's generally a good thing to do with waterproof cases and their seals. But it held up very well, and it's easy to take the camera in and out of the case whenever you're needing to access the SD card or charge the camera. And some cases, such as GoPro cases and stuff, are a little bit more difficult to take on and off, but this one seals very well. It survived depths up to 80 feet underwater, and it is easy to take on and off. This camera is also kind of like a perfect size and shape. It fits in your hand more like a camcorder does, so that makes it easier to hold, and it's also small enough but big enough that you can handle it. If an action cam gets too small, it becomes awkward to handle because it's a tiny little thing if you're holding it in your hand doing handheld shots and not just mounting it to something. But if they get too big, then it's hard to mount it to things, and this one I feel is like really a perfect size to mount to things or to just handhold. So they've kind of found the middle ground there. Another thing that I like about it is that everything on the camera is sorted by pictures and videos, so that there are separate folders for those and they're not just mixed into the same folder whenever you record them onto the SD card. They are sorted, so it's easy to just plug the camera into your computer and then just be able to say, oh, I want the pictures and take those off, or I want the videos and just take those off, so that you don't have to deal with sorting through all of the pictures and video to find which ones you want. They're just separate, so you can just see, oh, pictures are here, videos are here. This camera also has a time-lapse feature built into it, where it just shoots pictures every so often. You set however many seconds and however many pictures you want. And that is a very nice feature, because sometimes with your action cams you want to mount them to something and just let it sit there for a while. Well, things happen slowly. So that's another great use for an action cam. As opposed to using it for high action things, you can use it for slow things and do time lapse, because it's very small and easy to just set up somewhere. So that's a great feature to have on there too, so that like on my camera, my big camera, not my action camera, I'd have to get like a controller to do time lapses and time shots and stuff, whereas that feature is just built into this tiny little camera. The last good point that I want to talk about is that it does have standard tripod mounts, both on the waterproof case and the camera itself, so that if you want to mount it to something like a head mount or whatever, all those generally use a standard tripod mount, so you can just do that, or you can mount it to a tripod if you want. But having a standard tripod mount is very nice, because you can really use it on anything, because everything uses that when it comes to film and video equipment. So yeah, that makes it a lot easier to mount. Okay, let's move on to the bad. The first bad point that I want to bring up is that the camera doesn't like have separate buttons for pictures and video. You actually have to switch the mode on the camera between picture and video, and that's pretty common with like action cameras and stuff. But still, I mean, putting an extra button on there just to snap a picture or to shoot video would have made it a lot nicer than having to switch modes between picture and video, because sometimes I'm pointing the camera at things and I'm like, oh, I want a picture, oh, I want to video this. So that would have made a big difference in the overall user experience, rather than having to flip the camera around to the screen on the side and switch the mode over to picture, take a picture, switch it over. It just adds a whole lot of time, and just it's kind of unnecessary. My next gripe is that the sounds on the camera are extremely loud outside of the waterproof case, because they're made to where you can hear them while it's in the waterproof case. So if you take it out and you try and use it, it's just beeping really loud every time you hit a button or something, and it can be annoying to you and those around you. And there might be a setting in it. So far I haven't really messed around with that type of settings. You might be able to like mute it, but I think it really should do that automatically and be able to tell when it's in the case or outside of the case to adjust the sounds and adjust all the settings to where it will be optimal for in or out of the case. That would have been a great feature, and yeah, it is really annoying how loud the beeps are. I'm pretty sure you can only mute them. Another bad thing is that the files are sorted by picture and video. For some people, they don't like that, so I wanted to include it in both the bad and the good, because that's kind of like a personal thing, like whether you're gonna like that or not. Some people would rather just have them in the same place because they're just gonna dump them to their computer and they don't want to have to open 2 folders to be able to do that. I prefer having the files separate, but I did include it in the bad because I know some people are going to feel that way and they're not going to want to have them separate, and they're just going to want them to be together so they don't have to go to 2 different locations to get all their footage and pictures. My next gripe is that the buttons are hard to press inside of the waterproof case. All the buttons on the outside, they're just kind of more difficult to press whenever you're using it, and I think that could have been made better, although that is a very hard thing to do because of those waterproof seals. It's going to like slow things down, make things harder to press, but I think it could have been done a little bit better. They are a bit hard to press, and I think, yeah, they could have done a better job with the waterproof case buttons. Out of the case though, the buttons work great and are just kind of normal buttons, but yeah, in the case they don't do too well. Another thing is that there wasn't a wrist strap included with the camera. I had to get a wrist strap from an old Canon like point and shoot camera to put on it because I don't want to use this action cam like underwater and stuff because the camera does sink without a wrist strap, because if I drop the camera it's going to go straight to the bottom and the bottom might be farther than I can safely dive. So you have to have a wrist strap on it, and it's nice just to have a wrist strap whenever you're carrying it around shooting video and pictures of like city and whatnot, just so that you don't drop it, because that's wrist straps should just be included with cameras, or if it's a larger camera, a neck strap. Like that's just something that should be in it, and it wasn't. So put wrist straps in there. It's not expensive at all, and the camera has wrist strap mounts both on the case and the camera itself. So yeah, just do that, and please just include wrist straps with your cameras if you're watching camera manufacturers. My last gripe is that there is no good way to like view the pictures on the camera. You have to view them all on a computer because the screen on the side is just for menu navigation and there's no way to view it. So not having a screen doesn't allow you to frame up images, and it just doesn't allow you to review images afterwards, maybe delete them while you're on the go. You'll have to wait until you get back to home base to your computer to review the images and delete them. So that just kind of adds a little bit more time, whereas like on a GoPro or something like that, it does have a screen on the back so that you can do that. Okay, moving on to the ugly. The ugly is not like the really bad things. Like I said in the last review that we did in this styling, the ugly is we're going to talk about cosmetics, good and bad. So the first like bad cosmetic thing is that the camera like lens protector thing on the waterproof case is a giant rectangle, and I don't really understand why it has to be like that and why they can't just make kind of like an extension of the current lens to get the wide angleness instead of just making a giant rectangle on the front, because it looks really weird. It makes it hard to put it in a camera case, and it's just kind of clunky, and I don't like it. It does not look good at all. But overall, this camera is a very nice looking camera. It's a sleek little camera. You're not going to look like you're holding up a GoPro taking videos of everything. You're going to look a little bit more professional. It's sleek, fits in your hand nicely, and it looks pretty halfway decent. And there are white and black versions of it. I do have the black version. And yeah, overall it's a pretty nice looking camera. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, go ahead and leave a like on it. If you like this channel, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have advice for future content that I can make, go ahead and leave that down in the comment section below. I will see you guys in the next video.